Okay, I'm back. What's going on, guys? Okay, here we are. I wanted to talk more about this anonymous guy because it seems like that's just all that everybody's talking about. It's all over the place. Okay, again, I'm not going to list all those things, but anyway, it's everywhere. If you don't know about it, I don't know, you're living under a rock. Okay, so supposedly this anonymous op-ed writer wrote to the New York Times this essay, and he's supposed to be some guy who is in a resistance thing within the Trump administration in Washington. All right, so I'm digging and digging and digging on this, and I wanted to get on and let you guys know. I read this article in the Washington Examiner, and I really liked it. I have read the essay. I have read many articles. I spent like most of the morning reading about it, watching video clips and all kinds of stuff all about this. But the one thing that is really important that I think people really need to pay attention to. Number one, the American people, 63 million people plus, because there's more now. I'm truly convinced of that. The number is way more than 63 million people now, voted for Donald Trump to be their president. He is the one that was voted by the people in the United States of America to be the president of the United States of America. We, the people, did not elect an anonymous guy or some dude, whoever the heck this guy is, or this group of people to lead us, to make decisions for us, to do things based upon what we want. They're not doing what we want. Actually, this guy has clearly stated that he knows there is a deep state. And I truly believe that too, because I think politicians, Democrats and all that in Washington are corrupt. There is corruption in Washington. Unless you were born yesterday, which I really hope you weren't, but unless you were born yesterday, or you live in a rock, or you're a hermit somewhere, you know, like living in New Zealand in the Hobbit Hill with your door shut, and you haven't been paying attention about what's been going on, politicians are corrupt. It is a fact that they are. We don't have to go into a list of all the people that are, but we know there are. So I truly do believe there is a deep state, and the swamp does need to be drained. And this crap has got to stop. And we need to take back America and make America great again. Now, with that being said, keep in mind, this anonymous guy calls what he's doing is within a steady state. So in other words, he's not calling it a deep state. He's just using another word and calling it a steady state. Listen, an orange is still an orange. An apple is still an apple. You can name it whatever the hell you want. It's still the same thing. I think that it's right that the representative from Kentucky, Paul Rand, is calling out for like lie detector tests. I mean, seriously. Sooner or later, this is going to come out. Sooner or later, we're going to find out who this is. Sooner or later, we're going to find out even if this person is even real. We don't even know if this is even a real person. Okay, so anyway, I want to read to you what I read in this article in the Washington Examiner. All right, because I think it was a really good one. This guy who wrote it was Brian York. And here's what he says. There are 7 points on the anonymous New York Times resistance op-ed that he thinks that they're very important. So I'm going to just touch on a bunch of those. First of all, remember, this anonymous guy, this is what he wrote. He said, I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. The New York Times identified him as a senior official in the Trump administration. Claimed that he used his government position to thwart President Trump's more misguided impulses. Others, also unnamed, joined him in his effort. He said the article, quickly denounced by the president, promised to dominate cable news for days. Here are 7 thoughts on what it means. Number 1, it concedes that Trump's accomplishments are big. So in other words, this guy is basically saying he's accomplished a lot. Well, duh, we all see that. So is that really anything new that any of us don't know already? We know that. So basically, whatever, dude. Yeah, say that. It's fact. So yes, that's a good thing. He admits that the Trump administration has had significant successes on the issues most important to American voters. True. Okay. He then says, many of the administration's policies have already made Americans safer and more prosperous. Then he writes later, he makes a list. Effective deregulation, historic tax reform, a more robust military, and more. You know, and they're saying that this is a bad thing. I don't think this is a bad thing. Yes, Donald Trump did that. Okay. And then he goes on to say, he's conceding Trump's achievements undercut the broad theme of the article. Did you hear that? I'm going to say it again. He's conceding Trump's achievement undercuts the broader theme of the whole article, right? So, in other words, he's saying, oh yeah, he's done all these things and they were really good and this has happened and this has happened. But that's undercutting what actually is going on. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, are your alarm bells going off in your head? Because mine were like, oh my God, yes. Number 2, its complaints are very small. And this is another thing that is very true. Extremely true. When I first read it, my first reaction was, what in the hell? There is really nothing here. I mean, seriously. Okay. You want to ask yourself, why does this author even object to Trump? Right? Basically, after what he had just first got done saying, all these things that are wonderful for our country, for all of us Americans. He says, the president shows little affinity for ideals long espoused by conservatives. Free minds, free markets, and free people. In addition, the author complains that the president's, in quotes, leadership style is impetuous, adversarial, petty, and ineffective. Seriously, how? Is that not one of the most ridiculous things you've seen? I know it was one of the most ridiculous things I've read. Remember what he said in the beginning? Okay, now he's saying this. Crazy people. He said, there have been many meetings that have been walked back. Whatever that means. He said, you know, the writer of the article says it's kind of like a baseball game. You know, he kind of walked back. I don't know. Whatever. He also complained to his admission that Trump has made the country safer and more prosperous. There's nothing really that he's griping about. And then he goes and he says something like that. It's like total crazy. All right. You see where I'm coming from now? This is just cuckoo-ness. All right, number 3. It suggests there is a government conspiracy to thwart the president. The author writes that he and others inside the administration are secretly working to preserve our democratic institutions while thwarting Mr. Trump's more misguided impulses until he is out of office. At the same time, the author denies that there is a deep state seeking to stop Trump, preferring to call it a steady state. Think about that for a minute. Apple is an apple. Orange is an orange. Call it whatever you want. Same thing. He said, and now the conservative lawyer, Will Chamberlain, tweeted, "The Times op-ed serves as a confession that there is a deep state conspiracy to subvert Trump. True." Harvard law professor Jack Goldsmith tweeted, "I worry about how an open but anonymous celebration of a self-proclaimed steady state, thwarting not just the elected president's lying or illegality, but his whole policy agenda, will play before the many who believe that we're witnessing a soft coup by undemocratic means." I agree. 100%. This is bad. If this guy is even real. Do you think he's real? I'm skeptical about everything. Everything. Show me proof or go home. That's basically how I am. Anyway. Number 4. A senior official could be a lot of people. Yeah. This could be anybody. You guys realize this could be absolutely anybody. There's hundreds of people that work in the White House. Hundreds. Anybody. If the person's real. This is what he said. A senior official in the Trump administration, that could be anyone from officials we all have heard of, like the White House Chief of Staff, to an official in one of the departments whom no one has heard of. There are hundreds of people at the White House who think they're senior officials, when they're really actually not senior officials, but they think that they are. Former Bush White House spokesman Ari Fleischer tweeted Wednesday, "If this is a cabinet secretary, it's a problem. Maybe it's a National Security Council senior director. There are more than a dozen of them, and they're 3 levels down the NSC food chain." Former Obama White House Communications Director Jennifer Palmieri wrote, "This person could easily be someone most of us have never heard of and more junior than they'd expect." First thought that came to my mind was Monica Lewinsky. I don't know, for whatever reason, but it just did. Anyway, on the other hand, the Washington Post's Karen Tumulty tweeted, "It is hard to imagine the New York Times would have given anonymity to anyone on something like this to someone who is not at least as high as a cabinet secretary or assistant to the president. The truth of it all is, of course, unknown. Anonymous." This is nuts. Is this not nuts? People are actually believing this is like real. I don't know. What do you think? Tell me what you think. Number 5. Anonymity is good marketing. Yeah, it's really good marketing. Remember when I told you back in the other video that they're actually pretty smart in what they're doing and what they're trying to do. They're not dumb. Okay. What if the author had simply identified himself? Not only would everyone be able to evaluate his position, they would also look into his background and to draw connections between his past and his role as self-appointed in-house Trump resistor. Instead, by remaining anonymous, the author and the Times have not only avoided scrutiny, but have added an irresistible element of mystery and suspense to the story. That means more attention. Abso-freaking-lutely. Everybody is talking about it. That's all everybody wants to talk about. That's all they're talking about. All day. They were even talking about it when Obama was speaking this morning. I turned on the TV and he was doing some speech in Illinois. And they televised it. Anyway, number 6. Only got 2 more to go. It looks like a Woodward tie-in. I agree. The guy who made the book, who wrote the book, who basically is doing the same exact thing as this anonymous person, except for he is coming out and saying, "I'm the author, I'm writing this." And it's all just, there's a bunch of malarkey in there, but there's really nothing in there, you know, that he could use, that they're going to use against the president for impeachment or whatever. I mean, they can hope forever for something from some little sliver of grain of something that is going to help them to get this president impeached, but it's just not there. I'm going to have to read this book, though. I know it came out. He says, this Woodward tie-in, perhaps the author has been planning the piece for months. Our anonymous author. I agree, that probably could be. Perhaps its release had nothing to do with the publicity campaign for the fear book that Woodward guy wrote. Fear Trump in the White House. Anyway, a small group of good guy grown-ups protecting the country from Trump is just a coincidence. But the article appears to be an effort to draft on the publicity around the Woodward effort. I agree. I agree. I'm not the only one that does. Number 7, and here's the last one. We'll know more soon enough. The Times did grant the author anonymity because his job would be jeopardized. That's what they said. But by disclosure of his name, it seems hard to believe the author truly thinks he can remain anonymous and keep his job. In the white-hot public attention his article will attract, one way or another, his identity will likely come out, probably sooner rather than later. And then the story will become even more interesting. I gotta point out something to you guys. Seriously, as you ponder all this bullshit, like, I give this on a scale of 1 to 10 on the bullshit meter, like an 8. Here's why I give it such, I'm giving it high. Only because I do believe there is a deep state. I do believe there's corruption. Maybe a 9. I don't know. I'm not convinced of anything, but it makes you wonder, see? I'm trying to get in your head. Is it real? Is it not? Just because somebody wrote it or said it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And you have to keep in mind, like I told you in my last video, the QAnon guy or girl, I don't know, I just say guy. The one that is supposedly there that has been working with the president and for the president. He's like some high up military Q clearance, like the highest clearance in the nation. It's working for the American people. It's working for the president. And all those breadcrumbs, all the stuff I told you about him, the QAnon. Well, it's just really coincidental to me that they totally discounted that as fiction. Like, off the bat, it was crazy, it was nuts, it's conspiracy theory, it's Alex Jones, it's tinfoil hat, it's out there on the moon, bullcrap. That is what they all said it was. It was just total and utter crap, right? All of the left and Democrats said that it was. Now, all of a sudden they have an anonymous guy and this Woodward guy. The anonymous guy is the one that's basically, you know, coattailing off that. He's doing the same thing, but they're all like glorifying this. Like, oh my God, you know. Here's what I wrote in a comment earlier today, and then wrap it up. The left is believing that Donald Trump is inept. He is unable. His character and who he is and how he's running our country, he couldn't possibly be doing all these things. You know, to them, this makes so much sense because in their minds, they think he is an idiot. They think he is dumb, stupid, that he doesn't know what he's doing. And therefore, he would need these people in here to guide him, to do all the things that he's doing. Do you understand? They wrote in the beginning of this that he's accomplished a lot, and they mention all the things that he's accomplished and everything. Come on, think about it for 5 minutes. Just let it sink in. It's crazy world we're living in right now. Do not let socialists win in November. Get out and vote for Republican in November. These people are loony. There is a deep state. The corruption needs to end. And the only people that are going to be able to keep America, America, make America great, make sure that it stays great, are you people. So we need to get out and vote. Vote Republican, November. Do it. Your life depends on it. Seriously, it really does. Bye.